What's up guys, Lazy Gold Maker. Today we're taking a look at Inscription in Dragonflight, how it's going to play, how we can make gold, obviously all that jazz. So the first thing we'll take a look at is what can you craft? Well, you can craft inks and reagents for yourself, pretty self-explanatory. We have the return of missives to determine the secondary stats of an item. This time around you pick 2 stats, so there's 6 different missives, so you can pick Versatility Mastery as a combination instead of using 2 different missives. Then there are missives for profession tools, which guarantee a specific stat. This might actually be pretty useful because getting inspiration, for instance, for certain use cases is very good. Then you have the Darkmoon decks, which is now the Darkmoon deck boxes. I'll talk more about exactly how this works, but we're well familiar with these trinkets. Then there are some weapons, both epic quality and some rare quality ones. Sigils are a special optional crafting reagent just used for Darkmoon decks. Then we'll have the Vantus Rune and runes. These are completely new items. These are weapon enchants, or not enchants, they're consumables. You put them on your weapon, they give you a bonus for 2 hours. Similar to Shadow Core Oil in Shadowlands. Then there are some profession tools, the rare ones being BOP. And the uncommon ones being BOE. Illusion parchments, these are various consumable illusions. You put them on other players, they look different. Then under mysteries here we have the bundle of Darkmoon cards. This is how you craft Darkmoon cards. You don't craft one, you get multiples. It requires mostly awakens, no inks. Then there are some fortune cards, and then you can also turn cards back into awakened if you want. Contracts to get extra rep with reputations, very self-explanatory. Then we have the treatises. This is also a new kind of item. This is not a consumable. This is an item that you craft and you keep. It's bind on pickup, so you have to sell this through crafting orders. But everyone's going to want this because they give you 1 knowledge for your profession every time you use them. They have a 1 week cooldown, so it's 1 extra knowledge per week. And then lastly, there's a bunch of cosmetics for your dragon riding mounts. So that's pretty much it. Now the biggest change here is the Darkmoon decks, and we'll cover those first. So obviously you craft the cards with the bundle of cards, Dragon Isles, which now no longer requires ink, so you don't have to be milling your face off, but you do need a lot of awakened. Awakened is the new elemental type material, so it drops from mobs, similar to Eternal Life or Crystallized Life in Wrath of the Lich King, Primal and Motes back in TBC. This is a material system that they've had a lot of in the past, so you can turn them back into 10 Rousing Earth, which is what drops from most mobs, or through a 10 Rousing Earth is going to be turned into 1 Awakened Earth. So that gives you cards, and then as you can see here, I have a bunch of cards that I've crafted. Once you have enough cards, you can craft one of the decks. Then you can craft one of the decks, Darkmoon Deck Watcher. Once you have the Darkmoon Deck Watcher, now I can craft the Darkmoon Deck Box Watcher. So this requires one of the Darkmoon decks. The decks themselves are BOE, so they can be sold on the auction house, but the Darkmoon Deck boxes, which are stronger, are not BOE. They are BOP, so you have to sell these through crafting orders. So you take that, you take some Sparks of Ingenuity, some Primal Chaos, Awakened Earth, and the Cosmic Inks, and then bam, you have the upgraded deck. It just has a stronger version of the base proc, as well as obviously more base stat because it's higher item level. Interesting to note, this is from me crafting 200 cards. See how many aces I got. Literally 0. The rate of aces is lowered significantly. I believe, based on what they gave me feedback on in the alpha, that aces are supposed to drop from endgame content as well. But realistically, you will have to buy your aces. Like there's no way you can craft them. No way at all. You're not getting enough aces to finish off your other cards, essentially. So hopefully there's another source for aces, because otherwise, I mean, this is going to be completely pointless. So that's it. You can also destroy the cards, but that also seems incredibly low value. As you can see here, if I take one of these cards and destroy it, I get 4 Rousing Earth. Crafting this card required me to craft the bundle of Darkmoon decks, or bundle of Darkmoon cards, which requires a total of 15 awakened. Each awakened is equal to 10 rousing. And you get 2 cards per bundle of cards. So per craft you get 2 cards, which means it requires 7.5 awakened on average, and I'm getting like 0.4 back. So destroying your cards is completely worthless. It's pointless, unless cards are just worthless, but then you'd never craft them. So this feature is completely pointless. But that's fine. Interestingly enough, also in the specialization tree for Darkmoon decks, there's a node that increases the chance to find cards of a specific type. And as you can see here, I've done a test run with that active, and that seems to turn roughly half of your cards into that specific type, and then the other half is going to be split for the other 3 decks. So obviously this is very strong. If it turns out that one of these trinkets is just way more in demand than any of the other ones, then you'd want to specialize into that as soon as possible, so you don't get too many of the other wasted cards, but you'll still be hunkering for those aces at the top. I mean, trinkets are always good. Gear is always good to craft early. I think Darkmoon decks are looking profitable. It'll be interesting to see how we do. Definitely very nice that you can sell these as BOEs, and then people can provide them for the craft when they're looking to upgrade. So they might be buying the Darkmoon decks, and then they can just upgrade them later to a Darkmoon deck box, and then add stuff. And there's also the sigil system that changes the effect of the shuffle. So you can now choose, you can get the Sage Scale sigil, which means that the deck only shuffles when you jump. So you can just jump, you see the shuffle. Oh, did I get the ace? No, I didn't get the ace. Okay, jump again. Oh, it shuffles again. I got the ace now. Okay, now I'm not going to jump again ever this fight, and I'll keep the strongest version of the deck forever. So that's pretty useful. Gear. Weapons obviously useful. I mean, it's good. It's the second best, probably second most useful part of this. I like this Weathered Explorer stave. This is interesting. Huge haste proc. Seems on the not sure how good this is, but it's embellished. It doesn't have secondary stats, so this might be very strong, or it might be completely useless, just like these kinds of weapons typically are. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. Then you have the reagents you craft. I don't think there's much to say. There's inks. You craft the base inks, and then you can turn them into burnished inks, which is a rare ink that requires 2 of each. And then you have cosmic ink, which requires 2 burnished inks and 1 serene ink. Which means that you need to craft like successively higher skill. So you need to craft quality 3 burnished ink, which requires a lot of skill, and the quality 3 of all of the basic inks. And then to craft quality 3 cosmic ink, you need even more. And obviously you need cosmic ink, the highest quality ink, for the Darkmoon decks, the boxes. So people are going to need that for sure. We also have a lot of the staples, Vantus runes, contracts. Contracts are really good if you get them early, and then not so good if you don't get them early. I'm really happy overall about Inscription, mostly because this recipe has been changed since Alpha. On Alpha, this required Artisan's Metal, which meant that you just couldn't craft Darkmoon cards. Now you just have to buy tons of Awakened, which is going to be apparently, as far as I've heard, this is a fairly low drop chance item. But we're going to need a lot of Awakened for literally all the crafts in the game, and Inscription is going to need an absolutely humongous amount to craft the Darkmoon decks. But the big question is, where do you get enough aces to finish the decks? We'll just have to see. Then we're going to take a quick look at optimal knowledge point breakdowns. So for the weapons, if you want to get those to quality 5, the base weapon, that's going to be 65 knowledge. 85 to get the quality 5 embellished weapon, and if you want to infuse it with mythic item level, then you're looking at 100 for quality 5 guaranteed without an embellishment, and 115 with that. Now the Darkmoon decks, they require a lot of knowledge. 108 knowledge is required to get the quality 5 of the basic one, and if you want to get the quality 5 mythic item level infused deck, well, you can't guarantee it. The maximum skill you can gain from knowledge is 180, and you'd need 188, so you're just like a tad bit short, which means you need to rely on inspiration and recrafting to get it to quality 5 essentially. so that's a little bit expensive, but that's life. Same if you want to add the sigil as well, it's the same story. It's just 10 more skill that you can't reach. So that's life. At least that's what I've seen from looking at the trees. You barely can't reach it. Barely can't reach it. But that's how it is. That's how it is. Now, if we're looking for optimal builds or for the knowledge tree here, you have the generic tree, Rune Mastery, where there's one node that gives you skill. This one's quite interesting because there's a lot of plus bonus skills early on. It's like the first 25 points here will get you a total of 20 extra skills, so a total of 45 skills for 25 points. Probably one of the most efficient nodes I've seen, base nodes. The rest of these are not useful outside of milling, where obviously you want skill in milling and potentially a skill in inks as well, to get high enough up on the inks crafters to get the inks as high as possible. Archiving is the tree that's focused on Darkmoon decks. So you have this side dedicated to the Darkmoon decks themselves. This side is dedicated to the sigils. And then this is dedicated to contracts, missives, and draconic treatises. So this is one build area where I'd consider going in early. I think then you put 10 points into archiving, then you'd put your next 10 points in here, and then you'd max out whatever is the most in-demand deck. And to figure that out, you'd look at PvE guides for various specs to find the best one. And the reason why I want to put a lot of skills into the final node is because of these like final nodes here that are very, very strong. And particularly this one to get increased chances of that specific card type. Then you can get a lot of skill here, and obviously maxing out will get you access to Illustrious Insight. Then I'd put another 10 points here and 10 points here in Shared Knowledge, because then you can unlock treatises. This is something you might also consider just doing right away, because treatises are going to be so important. Everyone needs a treatise or 2 treatises for both of their professions due to how important knowledge is. So this is also something to consider, just going 10, 10, 0, and then another 10 points in the base node and then continuing here. You don't want to put more points than necessary into this base node because the bonuses are just resourcefulness and inspiration, which is very lackluster. The other thing you could consider is going into rune binding for weapons, Vantus runes, profession tools. If so, you'd probably want 10 points in the base node, 10 points in wood carving, and then 25 points or into staves, and then maybe put some more points into wood carving to unlock profession tools, or go down this route to unlock Vantus runes instead. But this is just going to get you better. This final node just gives you resourcefulness from crafting Vantus runes, which shouldn't matter that much compared to quality early on. I'm leaning towards Darkmoon decks as the preferred choice here. That's definitely what I'd consider the strongest, and I'm expecting to go down this tree and to focus on unlocking treatises and then going Darkmoon decks and focusing on whatever is the best deck essentially. Then we have some profession or some recipe sources. Now most of the good recipes here for inscription, they come from knowledge. There's not that many hard to get from other sources. You can see the list here. The things I'd mention, like their contracts, come from the respective reputation. And there's a good chunk of profession related stuff that comes from the Artisans Consortium. So you definitely want to put some time into that reputation specifically. Outside of that, it's mostly just from rune binding or from the knowledge tree for the most relevant recipes, which means like the trinkets, the weapons, and stuff like that. Definitely keep an eye out on the auction house for the Weathered Explorer stave, if that turns out to sim well for classes that can use it. If it doesn't sim well, then we can safely ignore it. Dragonscale Expedition is the other reputation I'd maybe consider focusing on, but overall I don't think there's any strong reason to focus on one reputation outside of just making sure you put everything into one reputation until you unlock that reputation's contract, because first to market on contract is going to be huge. If you're second to market, it's like whatever. And if you're 10th and or 100th to market, then a lot of the profit is already going to be gone. So yeah, overall you get most of your stuff from knowledge. You don't really have to play or inscription alt if you're focusing on the markets I like, which is power increasing stuff. Then you just want to do Artisans Consortium for profession tools, and then make sure you max out knowledge so you can get all of the juicy Darkmoon deck stuff. So yeah, that's it. I'm sort of excited. I'm very excited for the changes. Back in alpha I was very apprehensive because they used Artisan's Metal to craft the cards. Now it's looking a lot better, and I think Inscription can be very profitable. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.